Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Bebo. In this video, we're going to take a look at calculating the percent of markup, which is very similar to calculating the percent of change. Instead of saying it's a percent increase, it is now called a percent markup, but it is exactly the same thing. So taking a look at our first example, it says Ben's family is shopping for a new car. The selling price of a car is $24,199.50. Ben researches to find that the wholesale cost on that particular car is $22,100. What is the percent of markup? So going back to percent change, in a previous video when we talked about it, we talked about a proportion that we can use to find that percent change, percent increase, percent decrease, whatever it might be. That is going to be very similar in this case. So we're going to have the percent over 100, and that is equal to the difference, the change in prices over the original. So our original pricing in this case is going to be that wholesale cost. So when I set this up, we know we're solving for that percent of markup, so that's my unknown. My original value is 22,100. And for the change, which again is the difference, we're going to be doing $24,199.50 minus the wholesale cost of $22,100. Subtracting that, we're going to find a difference of $2,099.50. So $2,099.05. Now, just like we've seen in previous videos or just from our prior knowledge with proportions, we're going to do our cross products to then solve this. So we're going to do 22,100 times P. That's just going to be 22,100 P. And then 100 times 2,099.05. That is going to end up being 209,950. Then we have one last step, which is to divide both sides by what P is being multiplied by. And then we're going to find our final answer. So our final answer is going to be 9.5%. So my percent markup was 9.5%. And that's it. So in these questions, again, we can use that same proportion that we've been using to solve our percent change questions. All right, so taking a look at another one. In this question, it says a bike store sells a hybrid bike for $379.50. The wholesale cost of the bike is $230. What is the percent of markup? So again, we're going to use the same proportion. Percent over 100 is equal to the change, which again is the difference, over the original. So the percent is what we're trying to find. So that's going to be my unknown. That's my variable. The change, again, is going to be the difference in your two prices. So $379.50, take away the $230, and we're going to find that it's $149.50. That is my change in price. My original is going to be the wholesale cost. So the wholesale cost in this situation was $230. Then, again, we're going to do our cross products to solve this proportion. So we're going to do 230 times P, which will just be 230P. 149.50 hundredths is multiplied by 100 is going to be 14,950. And then we have one more step to solve, which is going to be to divide both sides by 230. So doing that, we're going to get 65%. So the percent markup in this case is 65%. All right, so that's it for those two examples on finding the percent of markup. These next two examples are going to be more complicated examples involving tips and markups. So let's take a look at this first one. In this one, it says Carrie and 3 friends went out for dinner. They split a large pizza and each person had a salad and a soda. They want to leave a 15% tip on the cost of the food, and the sales tax is 8.25%. How much will each person pay if they split the bill evenly? And just as a reminder, tip is only based on the subtotal. So again, it's just on the cost of food. It's the original amount before tax. So tax is going to be priced separately. So before we can even figure out the amount of tip or even the amount of tax, we need to figure out how much our subtotal is, how much it is before the tip and the tax. So it says that they shared the pizza. So that is just going to be that cost. It's just $18.60 times 1, because again, they only got one pizza to split. Now, each person is getting a salad and each person's getting a soda. Carrie and 3 friends, that tells us that there's 4 people. So we're going to multiply that by 4. So $2.50 times 4 is going to give us $10. And then $2.25, again, times 4, because each of them ordered a soda, that is going to be $9. To figure out our subtotal, we're now going to add all of these prices together. And that's going to give us a grand total of $37.60. So that is my amount before tip and before tax. So what we're going to do next after that step is to figure out how much tip, and then we're also going to figure out how much tax, and then we can add those amounts together to get my final bill. And then we have one more step after that. So to figure out the amount of tip, again, we are going to be leaving a 15% tip. So the tip amount is going to be $37.60 multiplied by our tip as a decimal, which would be 1500s. And that's going to tell me that I am leaving a $5.64 tip. So now I know that price. We're also going to figure out tax. Now, again, our percentage in this case is wrote as 8.25%. Again, don't let that deter you. That is just, again, if you know your fraction and decimal equivalencies, this is the same as 8 2500%. So now when I calculate tax, we're going to do the 37.60. So again, the subtotal, we're going to multiply that by our percent, but as a decimal. So this will be 0.0825, so 825 10,000ths. And multiplying that out, we end up with 3.102, so 3 102 thousandths, but we're going to round this to approximately $3.10. So again, that is my amount of tax that I'm paying. So to figure out my total, I can take $37.60, because again, that's my subtotal. We're going to add the amount of tip, $5.64 is what we're paying, and then $3.10 is the amount of tax. So if I add all of those prices together, we get a grand total of $46.34. But again, not my final answer, because it doesn't say how much we're going to be paying after tip and after tax. It says how much is each person paying if they split the bill evenly. So remember, we said that there are 4 people. So we have to take this answer and divide this by 4 to figure out how much each person is going to be paying. And each person is going to be paying approximately $11.59 for this meal. And that's it for this question. All right, so taking a look at one more rather complicated example. This one's going to deal with markups. All right, so for this last example, it says Jocelyn bought a broken antique table at a garage sale for $30. She plans to repair and paint it before reselling it. Her supplies cost $45 plus 6 2/500% sales tax. She takes the amount that she spent on the table and supplies and marks up the price by 120%. How much does she charge for the table? So first we're going to figure out how much she spent on the table and supplies. Well, the table we know she spent $30 on. The supplies, she spent $45 plus 6 2/500% sales tax. So we're going to actually have to figure out what this is. So we're going to do 45 multiplied by our percent as a decimal, so 625 10,000ths. We also could solve this in one step, but I'm just going to figure out the amount of tax and then add that on to $45. So 45 multiplied by that percent as a decimal to give us approximately $2.81. So the amount that she spent on her supplies is going to be $45 plus the $2.81, which again was the amount of tax. So she spent a total of $47.81 on supplies. So supplies, we now know, was $47.81. So it says she's going to take the amount that she spent on the table and supplies and mark up that price by 120%. So to figure out how much she spent on the table and supplies, we're going to add those two prices together. So $30 plus the $47.81, that is going to be a grand total of $77.81. So that's how much her cost was for this table that she then repaired and painted. We're going to mark up that price by 120%. Again, we can do this in one step like we saw in previous examples. I'm just going to go through and do it in 2 steps to keep it consistent with how I found the price that we spent on supplies. So we're going to do $77.81, and we're going to multiply by, again, the markup amount, which is 120%, so I'm going to multiply that, but in decimal form, so 1 20/100 or 1 2/10. And then that is going to give me an answer of approximately $93.37. So again, that is the amount that this table is being marked up. So again, she's trying to make a profit, so she's trying to figure out how much she needs to charge for, so she's marking it up $93.37. So to figure out my final answer, we're going to be taking the $77.81 that I spent again on tables and supplies, on the table and supplies, and we're going to add the markup amount, which was $93.37. And so adding that to, again, the $77.81, we're going to end up with a total of $171.18. So $171.18 is what she is going to sell that table for. All right, so hopefully that helps you again with tips and markups, and again, some more complicated examples involving those 2 concepts. Thanks for watching.